Hello friends! It looks like the rumors were true after all, and CD Projekt RED is actually making one more DLC for The Witcher 3 before completely moving on to The Witcher 4. The new expansion is called The Songs of the Past, and it's actually being co-developed with CDPR and Fool's Theory. The release is planned for 2027 on all major platforms. It's PC, Xbox and PlayStation. Now, CDPR hasn't shared a lot of details yet, but from what we do know, it's still going to be obviously a Geralt-led adventure. But they promise to give more information this summer. And if we're talking about PC specifically, the DLC is going to require a little bit more juice on your hardware, which should mean better performance and compatibility going forward. Or so it seems at least. But here is where things get interesting. As we talked about back in January, this lines up pretty closely with the earlier leaks. And if those leaks were right about this, there is a decent chance that they were right about other things. Like for example, a new desert region, a new Manticore School of Witchers, and a story that connects the Wild Hunt to The Witcher 4. Basically, it could show how Ciri goes from starting her own path to becoming a full-fledged Witcher that we saw in the trailer, using signs, drinking potions and hunting monsters properly. And also, I wouldn't be so shocked if this DLC wouldn't feature some sort of emotional epilogue for Geralt as well, some sort of a noble sacrifice or something similar to what we saw in the books. But for now, CDPR hasn't really confirmed that part yet. But I mean, it all makes sense, right? The Witcher 4 trailer clearly shows a huge time jump between those games, so they need at least something to tie those games together and show how Ciri goes from here to there. And from the business point of view, it also makes sense, right? I mean, The Witcher 3, according to them, sold more than 60 million copies from the original release date back in 2015. So another expansion could give CD Projekt RED a nice revenue boost while also warming people up before The Witcher 4. The only thing I'm slightly worried about is the size of this DLC. I mean, we've all played Heart of Stone and Blood and Wine, right? These DLCs trained us to expect big things and big content additions. So there is a small chance that if Songs of the Past is anything less than that, then people are going to be really upset. Either way, I'm really happy about this announcement, and I can't wait to go back and finish the story of Geralt. With the memory prices getting worse and worse, it looks like Xbox is now starting to rethink its strategy with their next-gen console, currently named Project Helix. The game business recently spoke with Xbox's Chief Strategy Officer Matthew Ball, and from the sound of it, the console is still happening. But the RAM situation is sort of forcing Microsoft to rethink a lot of these nitty-gritty details that really matter. According to Ball, Xbox wants this new console to be affordable, flexible, and actually valuable for players. Which, I mean, it all sounds good, but it doesn't really mean anything. The interesting part is that Xbox doesn't seem to be trying to compete with PlayStation and other console manufacturers anymore. Well, I mean, at least not in the way that they used to in the past. Instead of focusing mainly on exclusives like PlayStation does and Nintendo to a degree, at least according to Matt, they're trying to focus more on value, flexibility, and making Xbox work across different devices. Now, as usual, the wording is a little bit corporate, so it's really hard to decipher and pick anything concrete from these words. But at least the idea is more or less clear, I guess. Xbox is trying to pivot from the old console wars and trying to figure out what kind of niche can they occupy in the current market. We already know that Project Helix is expected to focus heavily on cross-device play, PC game compatibility, and Windows integration. And that makes sense since Microsoft already kind of tested the waters with Xbox ROG Ally. But there is a lot of uncertainty there right now. I mean, premium hardware is getting more expensive, console sales are not really doing that much, and Microsoft's strongest assets seem to be right now the content, the services, PC, and cloud, not necessarily boxed hardware sitting under your TV. And for Xbox, that's pretty massive shift. And honestly, I really find it funny because even a few months ago, they were all telling us about how RAM prices are not going to affect anything at all. And now, all of a sudden, we're shifting direction, rethinking strategy, and doing all this stuff. Like, what happened, guys? But, I mean, at least Microsoft seems to be thinking about flexibility and value before making any huge moves. So that's something, right? Another rumor that turned out to be true is that apparently we're getting a new God of War game about the wife of Kratos and mother of Atreus, Faye. According to the official announcement, while this started as a spin-off, it's moved way past that, and apparently it's now the next mainline entry in the God of War series. The story begins apparently right after Faye's death in a realm called the Everywhen, which is basically a place where gods go after they die. And from there, Laufey has to fight her way through the whole realm apparently to protect somehow Kratos and Atreus. We've already seen quite a bit of footage from the early minutes of the game, and honestly, they look amazing. Even with all the criticism the game is getting, I mean, you have to admit that it looks just as the rest of the God of War. In an interview with the game's Radar Plus, the team said this game lets them bring together the old and new eras of the God of War. So we're talking more juggling, combo chains, and dynamic movement from the classic games, mixed with the heavier, more grounded combat from the Norse games. Unfortunately, there is no release date yet, but you already can wishlist it on the PlayStation Store. Now, speaking of reactions, despite all the juicy gameplay bits, the reception was a little bit mixed to say the least. A lot of fans are upset that Kratos isn't a playable character, even though the game is still called God of War. Others are just unhappy about the move to a female protagonist in general. And even David Jaffe, the original creator of the series, said God of War Laufey looks dull and uninspired. I mean, to be fair, Jaffe has been criticizing God of War since they moved to the Norse saga in 2018, so what does he know, right? Personally, I'm cautiously optimistic about this one. I mean, the trailer looks fantastic, and I think people just need a little bit of time to adjust to a new course for the series. And it's not like Sony is doing it with a completely random character in a totally unknown setting. They're still using a character who already matters to the modern saga, with a combat system that people know, and first-party studio with a very strong track record. So honestly, if they were ever going to try it out, I think now is the time. And honestly, after 20 years of this series being alive, I think it can survive another main protagonist, don't you think? Also, I'm pretty sure this is a part of a bigger plan. Maybe it's setting up the next phase of the series, and honestly, I'm more than sure that Kratos is going to be back. But I'm curious, what do you think? Another big step has happened in Paramount's huge acquisition of Warner Brothers that's costing them $111 billion, with the United States Department of Justice officially approving the purchase. After a bidding war with Netflix, Paramount won the deal back in February 2026. And now, according to Reuters, they have one less major problem to deal with. The DOJ's Antitrust Division says the deal is unlikely to harm competition or consumers. Now, that doesn't actually mean that the deal is done. The deal still has to go through FTC review, the European review, and a whole bunch of other stuff. There is also expected to be some scrutiny surrounding the foreign investors backing, so at least for now, Warner Brothers are not yet part of Paramount. But this is still a big step forward. Now, what does that actually mean for games? I mean, for now, nothing. But there is something that happened recently, just days before this approval. Paramount announced its own unified games division, bringing together Paramount and Skydance gaming studios under one roof. The goal is to turn their biggest IP into long-lasting game franchises. They also appointed Tony Driscoll as president, and he has apparently more than 2 decades of leadership experience from companies like Epic Games, Warner Brothers, AT&T, and Disney. So basically, while Warner Brothers Games Division seemed like an afterthought during the acquisition negotiations, it looks like Paramount is starting to realize something. If the deal closes, they're about to become a massive IP owner. But owning a lot of IPs and knowing how to make good games are two very different things. Owning Batman, Harry Potter, Mortal Kombat, Game of Thrones, TNMT, SpongeBob, Star Trek, you name it. It all sounds amazing. But that doesn't automatically give you a sustainable game development pipeline. It doesn't solve production problems, engine strategy, live service design, morale, and release pacing. Still, at least it's a positive sign that Paramount is not planning to sell those IP to the highest bidder, and they're actually planning to do something about them. And honestly, that's already more than I expected. With Resident Evil Code Veronica finally announced some time ago, there is still one more remake that reportedly remains in development, Resident Evil 0, and apparently this one has already had a pretty rocky start. According to a notable Capcom leaker, the project was apparently rebooted mid-development and is now being passed to Capcom's Division 1 team. And that's reportedly Capcom's flagship team that handles most of the AAA game development, with games like Resident Evil, Dragon's Dogma, and Devil May Cry. So even if the project had a rough start, it sounds like it's now in safer hands. The funny thing is that this is now the third time they're releasing this game. First there was the original in 2002, then there was an HD remaster in 2016, and now this. And we're not even talking about the ports yet. But honestly, it's obvious why Capcom is doing this. The HD remaster alone sold 5.4 million units, which is a huge number even by modern standards. So at this point, Capcom could probably keep remaking and remastering those games over and over every 10 years, and people would keep buying them. The problem is that the obvious remake candidates are starting to run out. A lot of the big games have already been remade in the modern form. So sooner or later, Capcom is going to have to figure out how else to keep expanding Resident Evil while the mainline games are in development. Because without a steady stream of remakes, that becomes a much harder question. While Xbox and Bethesda are focused on The Elder Scrolls 6, there is one big question remains. When are we going to see a Fallout 5? And apparently it might happen sooner than people expected. According to Insider Gaming, the old plan suggested that Fallout 5 would only really happen after the next Elder Scrolls game. Which probably means that this is not going to happen for at least, 5-10 years? But a newer report says Xbox CEO Asha Sharma wants to invest more heavily into 3 core franchises: Halo, Fallout, and The Elder Scrolls. The idea is to apparently supercharge those brands, which could mean one or more of the following: more games, faster production, and more resources behind them. And apparently this plan is already backed by Microsoft CEO, so there is more than a decent chance that it will actually happen. And honestly, that makes sense because all these franchises are big, recognizable, and they haven't really seen a lot of new titles coming out. I mean, Fallout 4 came out more than 10 years ago. Fallout 76 is turning 8 this fall. And with The Elder Scrolls, I don't even want to get into that one. Aside from the Oblivion remaster, that said. But with Fallout 5, the biggest issue is still production capacity. If Bethesda wants The Elder Scrolls 6 to be some sort of a huge leap forward, that's going to require a lot of people, which means that only a small number of people could actually start working on Fallout 5. So if Xbox wants this game sooner, they will need to open up their wallets pretty wide, I think. And with the current state of the industry right now, I'm not even sure how they're going to pull that off without pulling resources from other projects. So yeah, this is great news for Fallout fans, but for the rest of the studios, I'd be pretty scared right now, as it might also mean that some other games may quietly disappear in the process. But we'll probably find out soon enough how well Xbox can actually manage all these huge franchises at the same time. And that's all I have for you guys so far. Let me know, what do you think about The Witcher 3 DLC? What are your thoughts on the next God of War game about Faye? And if you're excited about Xbox trying to push more resources into Fallout and The Elder Scrolls. As usual, if you want to know more, all links are down below. And of course, clicking the like button helps this channel a lot, and I personally highly appreciate it. Thank you for making it this far. Have a great rest of the week, and that's Alex signing off for now. Cheers!